Oscar Piastri did what is known in the trade as a Fremantle docker.
Desperately hoping that's not a portent of things to come. The returns of opening round are in. The wily old Magpies place spoiler to the hype as sharp assessments are made in the ranks of the defeated.
Gold Coast promoted to a share of premiership favouritism. Such was the magnitude of the first impression. Damien Hardwick joins us.
And Essendon coach Brad Scott is back at the desk after a complicated off-season that brings us to the Zack Merritt moments on Friday nights.
I said to the players today, can you help me? I'm on 360 to 1.
Are you aware of that conversation?
Yeah, I don't live under a rock.
The reality is now that the gloves are off, ball's fair and love more.
My job is pretty clear. Make Hawthorn win.
He'd be very good at hide and seek pitch, I reckon.
Marco Polo.
Marco. I can't have that. What do you want us to play worse?
When you caught my eye and Mustang.
I reckon it's just about the greatest prize that's ever happened in footy.
Nurse had a look at it, she said, there's a dent in that cup. And I had a bit of a look and sure enough there is.
Did you enjoy your first taste of footy in 2026?
I did, Gerard. I won't say I absolutely loved it because the 5th of March, there's no world that I live in. That should be the start of the home and away. But once we got going, it was great. I was up there Saturday night and saw the Dogs. Awesome.
I could have got another one today.
You could have, yeah, maybe.
Public holiday, Victoria, South Australia.
We've got 30 more weeks of this, so just give it room. But it was an early start, Gerard, and long... Anyway, I don't want to start on a negative because there was some great footy played. All
right, Brad Scott, Damien Hardwick, our coaches, Lee Matthews is here for On the Couch, along with Nathan Buckley. That's what lies ahead on Fox Footy tonight. Every Monday, I'm thrilled to say the return of the GVPs, the most valuable player from the previous round in the estimation of just one man, Garry Lyon. Now, this was already the biggest prize in footy, and Ford have just stepped up a little bit further.
Wow.
We have moved from Mustang to Ranger Super Duty XLT for the GVP winner.
That is $108,000 worth of automobile. It is a beast, Gerard, and it will be the most sought-after prize in footy. And, well, it all falls on my shoulders, which no correspondence will be entered into at any stage.
So Ford have stepped up with that, and there's more to come.
I know. One each?
Well, they're going to make announcements soon.
OK, I look forward to it. That's unbelievable.
Ford have upped the ante. Yep. You've upped the voting process. There's now 5 players to be awarded votes every Monday.
Yeah, 414 players each week take the field, Gerard. So I was only allowed 3, so I begged for 5. So I've done exactly that, and we can kick things off. For the opening round, I thought this bloke was the difference. He set them up. I know there are others that you can make a really good argument for, but it was in a hole, this game, and it needed a shot of an injection of class, and it was Errol Goulden was the one that did it. So he gets the 1. 2 to Jake the Snake. He kicked 5 goals for. This is against a defence that had 3 State of Origin players in it, in Barras and Battle and Hardwick, and he could have had 7 easily, Jake. So
don't give him a contract too soon.
No, keep him hungry. This game was full of superstars, and by the end of it, Ed Richards had elevated himself again to the absolute top. He was absolutely magnificent. I love the way he plays. 30 touches, 16 score involvements. He's a jet. And this bloke, well, you wonder if he could do much more. There just happened to be one better than him on the weekend, but he was superb. 41 touches. He just makes the game stop, and then he finds a target when no one thinks there's a target there, and it was a joy to watch. But this is as good a game as Christian Petracca's played. Someone accused me of hyperbole. No, I've seen every one of them, and this is as good as I've seen this bloke play. You were there, Gerard. He jumped out of the blocks. No, you were there. You were watching. Yeah, I was there. Oh, you were there, yeah. His kicking.
Not very memorably, clearly.
You did. His kicking was the thing. Like, as I said, I've watched all of his footy, and he was a bit of a banger. His kicking was precise. He hit targets. He kicked goals when they needed to be kicked, and to top it all off, the defensive side of his game was superb. He chased down Max Holmes, of all people, as well. So Christian Petracca could not have started life as a son in any better shape.
All right, his coach will join us to talk about all of that shortly. And that is the very definition of most valuable, the players you've just outlined.
It's a pretty
there.
good group, wasn't it?
All right, let's get to it. Top of the agenda, the amped-up start to season 2026. Record-breaking quarters, record-breaking crowds. For the most part, it was great to have footy back, particularly given what happened to the other star turn of the weekend.
You just never know. You really don't know. Like, you tune your car up like the Grand Prix and you just don't know what the racing's going to look like. And You know, Oscar crashed in the warm. I'm like, please. Oh, your heart sinks. Your heart sinks.
In a champagne supernova, a champagne supernova.
They were a bit more efficient than we would like, and we were inefficient. So they took their chances, and we did it.
We've got work to do, so we're not stepping away from that. Hugely disappointing. I know the boys were looking forward to doing a heck better than that.
Often happens in this game, but we got what we deserved. Thought they outworked us from the very start of the game. We have no excuses to put in that sort of work rate. We won't be overreacting to, one performance. We've got to be careful we don't make it bigger than it is.
But no alarm bells, they're a good team. They played very well last week against Hawthorn. They have got a lot of star players in their team. We knew it was going to be a hard game, and it was a hard game. It was a great game.
Someday you will.
And the Swans make a statement to kick off the season in 2026.
It would be a statement to beat all statements if you beat the Kings of the Jungle in their jungle.
This is a fantastic result. It's a fantastic game of footy.
What a win for the Western Bulldogs! Ladies and gentlemen, you have witnessed a classic.
Monumental, I don't know what it means, but it's a great way to start the season.
This is an opening round performance to take notice of. Christian Petracca and the Suns could not have made a better first impression.
And the GWS Giants make a statement of their own.
They are too good. They are too good.
And the Pies with their first win of the season.
You don't know what's in front of you because you can't control a lot of stuff. And we came here tonight not knowing, but we found out a bit that our system's pretty good.
How did we get through summer without the footy?
So let's sift through the taster that we have just had and start with the last win at Collingwood. So underdogs, undermanned, underestimated, but there they were at their professional best, just defying the broad expectation.
Yeah, I think so. I think when you wake up this morning, you'd say, were they really? The underdogs going in? And if you trusted Collingwood more, then you would have expected the win, I think, in the end. There was a lot of talk around the Saints. And for all the talk, I mean, they still have got much improvement to come if they want to be genuine contenders, I think. The players that they've added are good depth players. Flanders is a depth player who could get better. Ryan has got a long season, so they've got a lot of a bit of hope to try that he can get through. His best is good. I thought DeCarney was the best of the lot, and Silvani's so solid down there. But it's Philippou and it's Wilson and it's Taru. That's where the upside's going to come. And, this is round one, opening round, so... I mean, I don't know if Saints fans wake up today and think the whole thing's out the window. It's not. If you're a realist, if you're an absolute pragmatist, you go in and go, well, this is a really organised Collingwood team and they completed more plays and took more opportunities, and that's a fundamental difference by the end of it. So, I don't think the result is something that Saints fans should get overly concerned about. And from a Collingwood point of view, they did it with a few players missing. The question will be whether their young blokes can come up and help drive them back into a really solid finals campaign. But, I think it was a win for organised professionalism and a group that have been together for quite a while.
So, Nick Dacos, you've saluted there. They used Scott Pendlebury so cleverly, and his impact in his 53% of game time was immense.
Yep.
Jordan De Goey, so when he struck hard, and then they are just so clever. Under siege at various stages in the last quarter. When they had it, they just knew how to pick their way around. And the uncontested mark game was sort of one of the really interesting flags. Now, whether that's circumstance or whether that's precisely what they're going to do, we'll find out.
Well, having watched all the footy over the weekend, and we anticipated that speed and pace on the footy was going to be the games that we did together, games that we watched early, certainly Sydney after half-time was just breathtaking. I thought I was conservative in the first half, probably from both teams. And after half-time, they did take advantage of it, Collingwood, and started to open the game up a little bit. So, I don't know. It was a great occasion. It was 80-odd thousand. I didn't think it was a great game, but it was a great 4 points to be able to bank early in the piece and not the end of the world for the Saints.
So St Kilda had banged the drum literally and metaphorically. They made a big occasion of it. It was the unveiling of the new era, and it just fell a little bit flat for what you've said. So there's a few questions out of it which are just the start of conversations, not rushing to the end. The forward line setup's not going to strike fear into anyone until Max King is there, and then when is that going to be? The young players you've referenced, for all that have come in, it still swings on Filippo and Taru and Wilson as to whether they're going to blossom.
Tribunal's got to get in that side.
And when is that going to be? Yep. And the only question that sits on those that they've brought in is, are they difference makers? Or are they just nice pieces that you add? Because you use the word depth. They've recruited them to be more than that. Now, that's it was just a touch underwhelming.
Yeah, well, I'm not convinced they will be more than that. And that's not a criticism of what they've done, because I think it's made their list better than what it was. But whether that is good enough to really contend, I've got my doubts. But there's something to throw back at them. They've got Melbourne next week, which I think is a more realistic... Well, no, they're every chance to win against Collingwood, but they should beat Melbourne on the basis of what we've seen on exposed form. But Melbourne have had a good pre-season. So, I don't know, it's a good start. It's a start for the Collingwood faithful that they'd be thrilled with, and Ross will get to work.
Saturday night was pulsating. It wouldn't be the first time that the first game of the season ends up being the best. It set a high watermark. So for the Bulldogs, they have stumbled out of the gates at various stages and sort of missed their moment to plant their flag. They lived the journey last year, which we well know they were the flat track bullies. They couldn't beat the teams above them. So to step out and do it against the defending champs, and to do it in the manner that they did from 26 points down, what impression has it left you with?
No, profound. So I did that practice game the week before, and they were taking it very seriously against Hawthorn, but they carried that on. What I loved about it was two players I think are symptomatic of where they're at is English and Norton, who at various stages have been All-Australian. Aaron Norton had a good year, kicked 60 goals. But he just had a goal kicked against him by Darcy Fort. The game's in the balance, and this is what I love. Just dig in here. Take Fort somewhere where he's uncomfortable. There, that moment there, to me, because English was outstanding last week, and again this week was really important. That moment said a bit, and he kicks a really important goal, kicked 2 in the last quarter. And the other one is Aaron Norton, who's... Just look at these efforts here, Gerard. Hadn't had a great night, so that's 1. He doesn't lose his feet. That's 2 back at Harris Andrews. And this is in the balance, and this is 3 again, turns the footy over. Ball ends up in English's hand, he kicks his second goal. So to me, the message that, we are told that they are, banging the drum really hard at is... Never give up, tooth and nail, all that sort of stuff was encapsulated in those plays, and they played like it. 26 points down against the reigning premier in Brisbane on opening night, and they kick 8 of the next 11 goals. And, gee, they got some value out of Jakes, and Selwood was terrific, Butterick was a great choice. So we know they got top end. I didn't buy any of the nonsense that they had the best list in the league last year. I just wasn't buying it because the bottom part dropped away. On the form that we're seeing here, I think they make them better at the other end, which then means that they're going to be right there. Bontempelli did his bit, The other side of the coin, Lachie Neale was unbelievable for the Brisbane Lions, and Zorko was great. So it was a really good game. It was actually better than that. It was a great game of footy.
So Richard's ascension to be able to control the midfield and what that means for Bontempelli spinning forward when the game's on the line?
Yeah. So coach-wise, I thought Luke Beveridge had a great night in the box because it was in the balance. And he was brave enough to take the man who's, many say is the best player in the comp and start him forward, inside forward 50. And that means that you've got to have faith in what you leave behind. And Ed Richards just steps up and says, leave that to me. And he's the best player on the ground. And Bontempelli impacts enormously down here. And all of a sudden, Harris, who's had a great night on Sam Darcy, but then he couldn't... Darcy goes off and he's got Bont, and then Bont takes him somewhere he doesn't want to go. And this is the end result. These are uplifting moments, and we'll talk to our coaches about this. This is Luke Beveridge, he knows the camera's there. You're aware of that. Well, I'm assuming he's aware of that, but this is more than look. This is okay. We've invested heavily in this. There's been a narrative around that we can't take a big scalp. Well, we've just taken out the back-to-back premiers at home after giving up a 26-point start, and we've kicked 8 of 11. Who's next?
Their own expectations rise. So we'll talk about the Lions' problems in a minute, but it was meritorious, and bar for Rayner missing the soccer goal in the square and Charlie Cameron, who kicked everything, missing the snap that he would kick 9 times out of 10. They're right there again. And just thinking through how early this premiership defence starts, it was full of merit from them as well.
No, I said it straight away that no one loses any respect at all. And they threw plenty of big punches. Lockie was fantastic. Zorko was fantastic. McCluggage was off the ground inside 5 or 10 minutes. And Charlie Cameron was, probably the best player on the ground in the first half and in the best handful. So this wasn't a Western Bulldogs victory over a Premier that coming off a shortened pre-season, which we look at Geelong on the back of that performance, talk about in a moment, and they just didn't look ready to play. For whatever reason. Well, Brisbane, probably their depth and quality goes a bit deeper than even the Cats, and they were pretty brave.
So last year they endured setback after setback, injury, tough fixture. They absorbed it all and they prevailed at the end. So they start with 3 suspensions and an injury. So Hugh McCluggage is going to be short-term, but he was out of the game straight away, and they're 3 suspensions. So they'll go to the tribunal on 2 of these, which is interesting. They've accepted Zack Bailey for the little elbow going backwards.
Stupid.
Harris Andrews and Darcy Gardner. The Andrews one is so this is the first test case. There is the capacity within the tribunal system now for flexibility when there's a concussion that results. It's been rightly graded as severe, and now we find out the push and pull. Where is the capacity to argue this down from potentially 3 to 2 to 1? Is this the right case for it? What sort of culpability is there in the swinging arm going backwards? It's obviously careless, but what layer of culpability comes with that because the outcome is awful? This was a straight-up 50-metre penalty. Every time it happens, whether it's a suspension or not, that's an interesting one if you drive the elbow forward in such a way. But the Andrews one is the one that every other club is going to be looking at, going, OK, what's the capacity within this new structure to be able to argue something down from 3 to less? And that will only evolve through case law.
Yeah, so your area more than mine on the night, if you throw your hand back, and this, look, we talked about last week, the gut punch, which was just stupid, that ended up getting a week, and this is as stupid as that. So I'm sure Zack Bailey's sitting at home tonight and just looking at that going, well, I won't do that again. That's just an act of stupidity. So on the night, he throws... the thing was he looked back, and so Harris looks back and knows that Artie Jones is there. And so he does what all defenders need to do. He tries to stop him from running on, but swings it pretty forcefully. I don't think it's malicious. I don't think even it's intentional. But when the action goes like that and you haven't got control over where you're going to make contact, then you throw yourself at the hands of the matrix, I called it. Yeah. And in these circumstances, you've knocked out a bloke. He's been concussed. So if it's 3 weeks, that seems, at the top end. I could live with 2. I think one would be cheap.
Yeah.
That's where I sit.
So how do they interpret it and apply it? That's what we'll start to learn tomorrow night. From the losers, and there are layers of concern, and there are, the odd mulligan here or there. Who most concerned you in the way that they lost?
Well, the Hawks, only in as much as I've got greater expectations than I had. People say, Carlton, surely. I said, no, I'll get to them in a moment. Hawthorn, they could have got a sign writer out last year and written across the skies of Melbourne, we are short and weak in our midfield. Such was their chase and pursuit of Zack Merritt. So that's telling the whole world what we now know to be the case, is that their midfield depth isn't anywhere near where it needs to be, although they went really deep into September last year. So I haven't got a long-term concern. I've got great faith in Mitchell and his ability to swing that around, but this is the area where they're vulnerable. And when Sam Day's not there, we know Sam Day's not there, and you're coming up against sides that have got really strong deep midfields. The best sides have got, they bat 6, 7, 8 deep, Gerard. So, they bat Jai Newcomb and the rest are, Warple gone. So then you're looking at guys who have got to establish themselves, and can you be an AFL elite midfielder? Don't know.
Moore, Ward, McDonald. How high is your learning curve?
That's right.
How quickly can you develop in the midfield?
Yeah, so the spark is Watson. Can you get him in there, and how long can he play in there? And you're taking someone away, so that's okay. As I said, their actions told the footy world what we see on the weekend, and then it's up to them to go and fix it.
And they were unusually disconnected in defence for a Hawthorn team as well, which I imagine is a rust issue.
Yeah, a bit of panic, which we haven't seen from them for a while.
And then the
Giants were bloody magnificent.
And that tells you that the coach has his team.
Yeah.
So we've sort of seen a little bit of that over the off-season.
Yeah.
But there's nothing like the actual performances. They're up against it with personnel issues. He's got his team.
I suspect it's coach and captain, Gerard.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
I think it's formidable, and they played like it. So, that would be a victory that they'd cherish, that one.
The Carlton side of the equation?
Yeah. So I'm going to talk about this a lot this year. it's the gap, right? It's the gap between the two. So we sat here on Wednesday, we talked about it, and we said, listen, Sydney got 6 A-graders, A-grade players. Carlton have probably got 3. And then you look at the way the game's going, and what you've got to be very hopeful for, because these are in long-term investments, is you've got to hope that your A-graders are suited to modern-day footy. The footy that's played today, Gerard, not the footy that's played 5 years ago. And this group is, whereas the Blues A-graders probably aren't. And that's not a knock on a 2-time Brownlow medalist, because for the era when he won those, as good as anyone. Yep. And Walsh the same. Wiedering's Wiedering. Wiedering plays his role. But Sammy Walsh is, even on the weekend, fantastic. Won his own footy, but he doesn't hurt you as much. When you look on the other side, they were quiet in a half. The Swans were quiet for a half, and then their A-graders got going, and they blew the game to smithereens in a quarter because their A-graders fit modern-day footy to a T.
Yes.
They run, they carry, they kill you by foot, and they bang 13 goals on in a row. The young man who had 18 or 19, Ollie Lord.
Cooper Lord.
This is not Cooper Lord. Great young lad, and I was thrilled for him. 18 or 9 touches half time, but he doesn't hurt you like the other group do, and that's not a knock on Cooper. I hope he gets there, and he's just starting in his career. But when the others do, modern day footy says is set up for Goulden, it's set up for Warner, it's set up for Blakey, it's set up for Heaney. They are right where they need to be, and so. 13 goals, and all the hoo-ha about the way they play, Carlton would know that. They 100% they would know that. But we might just go, Sydney the best team in it, and in 6 or 8 weeks you'll go, they're going to blow a couple out of the water. It's the gap between the best and the not.
All right, you contend to the gap throughout. The hyperventilating around Carlton has been ridiculous. When their fixture came out, you looked at it and go, loss, win, win, win. Mm-hmm. So Sydney was always going to be a loss. Now, the manner of the third quarter is troubling, and that is for them to address and attempt to rectify. These are the 3 games that they have to step through and win. And this is where you're much more likely to see what they've been working on, that you're able to embed. So we got tastes of it along the way, but under the enormous pressure that Sydney were able to provide in the third quarter. And they got stuck in a 40-minute quarter. It was like spending 6 months in a leaking boat. Yeah. They could do nothing as that unfolded. So judge them on these next 3 games, which we fully expect them to win, rather than hyperventilating. And if you were only up for 3 quarters of a season, then you were never in for the fight. No. If you've tossed the toys out of the cot after 3 quarters, you were never truly in for the fight. So let's see it. Go about and win these next 3 and give a better display of what you've been working on and the progress that you've made against the like for like, and then find your place. They're going to be in the lower reaches. They have set up to be in the lower reaches. They are developing their list at the moment. They sold their high-end talent for the future. They're going to develop these 2 number 3 picks, and they're probably going to have the number 1 pick next year, and then bring them along. If you think they are going to be successful this year, you have deluded yourself into a state of frenzy, at which point you become a vandal.
Yes. An unrealistic one. It loses all sense of perspective. It is. What you invest in, you invest in what you want as a Carlton supporter. We're telling you as non-Carlton supporters that watch a lot of footy, invest your passions in Jagger Smith and the boy Dean in the back half. And that is what you're going to add to over the summer months, and hope along the way that the game style, you'll get split open again by the best teams, I'll promise you that. But against these next 3, then you've got every right to go along with a great expectation. But don't throw the toys out of the cot on the back of what happened on Thursday night, because Sydney might just be that good.
Hobby horses, so you think the season starts too early. I do think we have to start on this long weekend.
Do you?
But the game lengths, I agree with you.
5th of March?
Yeah, we've got to get
joking.
Get out, get going, get moving.
It's a 30-week season, and then as a result, we had a weekend of footy where we played extra 2 minutes.
This was game time. This was a little bit troubling, just how long these games were.
I'll concede you the 5th of March. Can we get the games shorter?
Yeah. It's going to require more than a little nip and tuck. You're going to have to have...
I know.
It's going to have to have really directed surgery as to what comes out of the game to reduce...
Yeah. And the games were quick. The games were quick, and they were hectic, and they were moving. And I know that third quarter's probably been affected, well, not probably, has been affected by what the Swans were doing. But, she's an early start, June. We'll start at Christmas.
Let's get a real jump. Get a real jump. Go up against the Boxing Day test.
All right, let's run some of this past our coaches on duty, shall we? Damien Hardwick knows how to build a successful program, and we're all taken with how the Suns look first up. So the Gold Coast with Damien, and Brad Scott's had to cool his jets through the long weekends. The Bombers get their first look at things on Friday nights.
HBF Dream Team moment.
We're all intrigued to see how Christian Petracca would perform on night one as a Sun, and club debuts don't come any better. The Norm Smith medalist had a career-best game on the Friday night stage, 3 goals and a stack of it. His leadership was there for all to see, and his enjoyment of the game as well. It would have warmed the hearts of plenty, including his coach. It looked like a canny choice from the Suns at first look. Damien Hardwick is with us back on Coaches Nights. Damien, great to have you back.
Evening, gents. Brad, how are we?
Brad Scott here at the desk. Did you get impatient, Brad? Welcome.
Yeah, it is a long wait when you watch the opening round, but it's here now, so worth the wait.
Dimmer, did you get it once we'd all left and got out of the way? Did you get a quiet moment with Christian just to absorb what he'd been able to do first up?
I didn't until today, actually. So obviously we had the weekend off, which was quite pleasing. We had a little bit of a different draw up until that. So I caught up with him today. He was obviously, very happy with his performance, but more importantly, he was happy with how the side played. So it was a good weekend all round for the Petracca household, which is awesome.
Just take us back, Dimmer. When it became apparent that he was gettable, why did you want him?
We sort of felt there's some areas in our game that when we are looking to play the very best teams, there's a little bit of a shortfall, and that was in particular in the forward half part of the ground. And there's certain players that we looked at that we wanted to try and attract to our footy club, and obviously Christian was on top of the list, and we had some really productive conversations, and then it sort of basically came down between ourselves and Adelaide, and so we knew we were a 1 in 2 chance. And then when he called me, I still remember, it's like one of those days where, when the space shuttle has, sort of incident and all that sort of stuff. I'll always remember when Christian Petracca rang me. I was on the couch watching, I don't know what I was watching, some show, but I'll remember exactly where I was. And, I was jumping up and down whilst trying to still talk on the phone. So it was very exciting for me.
Did you think, so part of this is his own personal triumph through what he's been through for a couple of years. Did you feel like he'd been run down in the broader football world for whatever motivations and whatever reason?
Yeah, not speaking particularly about Christian, but it can happen with players that have been at a high level for a long period of time and are highly regarded or sought after by the public. So it can become slightly exhausting and monotonous. So I think, for Christian to come up here to purely focus on his footy, the media scrutiny is not the same up here. It's building, we understand that, but I think what he could do is he could sort of settle into his own routine, his own environment up here and play some really good footy, as we emphasised, or as we saw on the weekend. So I think it's been a change as good as a holiday. So it's been a real positive for us and Christian thus far.
So the value of happiness within a player, I think, is, and there was this great juxtaposition between Christian, who came to your club, and Bailey Humphrey, who, and you can tell us differently, but, explored some options back home in Melbourne for whatever reason. You've got Christian into a real happy space, and that is the best thing. But you've also, I think, as impressively, been able to have Bailey Humphrey come back in and, you can tell us whether it was real or not, but come back in and been happy enough to play the sort of footy that complemented the two of them. I mean, he was, as much as we're lauding Christian, Bailey was the man in the first 15 minutes who set the thing up.
Yeah, he was electric, wasn't he? And, that's why we love him. And look, he had some things that he had to deal with when he went back to Melbourne, and we can understand family is very, very important, but we felt we could help Bailey through those situations, but more importantly, get him to understand that he can do things, but also ask for help along the way, and doesn't have to deal with these things alone. And, as a young man, he's 21 years of age. So, anyone that has got is distanced from their family always wants to be relatively close. But what we do know is Bailey's one of those guys. We love having him around the footy club. He's infectious, the way he plays, the way he goes about his business. And he's just he's one of those people. As soon as he walks into the room, you just smile. You know you're going to have a good conversation with him. And look, we've got a really, really strong relationship, and we're very respectful of that and understand that. But he certainly won't be going anywhere this year or in the not too distant future, as far as I'm concerned.
It was a powerhouse performance, and you are now outright premiership favourites. That part will mean nothing to you, but the creation of expectation and living with expectation will. Have you had to think about that across the off-season as to what that's going to be like for this group?
Yeah, we have. We spoke to our playing group about it, and we've got a great mental performance program that Alex Rance takes care of, and we spoke about the. Expectation is always going to be there. We're in professional sport, but the fact of the matter is, if you just focus on the outcome, you're going to get tight and you're going to worry, and anxiety is going to creep into your performance and take you down a path that will lead to a not positive outcome. And so we spoke about our players just about concentrating on the process of winning and understand what that looks like. If we keep our process strong, if we play our role, if we've got clarity of role, we're going to be okay. But if we start to think about expectation, let it weigh us down, we're going to we go down a path we don't want to see.
Brad, what's it like sitting back watching on? You did last year, but to all intents and purposes, you're going to be a part of it before the cyclone hit. I mean, are you a fan of this? Is this the right way to start a season or not?
Looks like a cyclone behind Dimmer there in Queensland, so maybe opening round in Queensland's not a great idea. But look, I've got probably a unique perspective, having played the vast majority of my career up in Queensland. I know the growth of the game is really important, and the reality is there's a gap that has been left by the NRL, and the AFL have chosen to fill that gap. So, I think that the growth of the game. Predominantly the growth of the game is coming from the northern states. So that part of it I understand. But, we've got new issues next year with the centenary test, the MCG not available. So I think the AFL are fairly innovative. I think COVID taught us one thing, is that they can move pretty quickly. So I think they'll always look at opportunities. But, would we prefer to play? Yes, we would. I think everyone would. It's certainly a long wait once the season starts to... Fortunately, we play Friday night, not Sunday.
Does it skew things with teams playing against teams who have played, with idle teams playing active teams this week?
Yeah, potentially, but you can argue the opposite too. That we're have had a much better controlled preparation without the uncontrolled nature of a game, and potential injuries, those sorts of things. Players who pull up sore, but. Look, it's all coming at... Tasmania are coming into the team with 19 teams, so we're going to have to deal with buys, we're going to have to deal with all those things. So, I sort of second what Dimmer said. It's like people get sick of hearing coaches talk about process, but really that's what what I spend the vast majority of my time talking about.
So you've lived both of these experiences, Damien. Are you an advocate for opening round? Should it be jealously guarded? Should it be opened up? Where are you?
Well, I think we've got to sit there and think about the greater good. Half of Australia's population is in New South Wales and Queensland. We're bringing in another side, a 19th team, and we probably had the least amount of kids drafted in the Coates League in the history of our draft. So we've got to grow the game. We've got to get more kids playing the game so we can get the talent pool bigger. We're bringing in another side, so we've got to sit there and think outside the square. And we've got to get people stop thinking with their own clubs in mind and think about the greater good of the game. It gives us free air to grow the game and market up here. And, I think that's great for the northern clubs in general, but the overall game of AFL footy, the more kids playing increases the talent pool and increases the standard of the game also.
And on the standard of the game and the look of the game, there were some significant changes in the off-season. I'm sure you watch plenty of footy. So the numbers suggest the AFL probably got what they wanted. Scoring's up, stoppages are down. Is that how you saw it?
Oh, well, they're the facts. I don't think the AFL are definitely trying to increase scoring. I think that's a common misnomer. I think, and my experience in the AFL, scoring's great unless there are score blowouts and the margin's massive. So the AFL would like high-scoring, close games. That would be ideal, but that's not realistic. So I'm not sure the AFL are pursuing high scoring, but it didn't surprise me in round one because that's what we saw through the community series. GWS kicked 100 points before three-quarter time. So the changes to the game have certainly opened things up. I think the stand rule is probably back to what it originally was. So that's being talked about as a change, but I think it's more just going back to what it was designed to do.
Got a few to get through. What the fifth player, Dimmer, how did you handle it yourself? There have been different sort of iterations, Papley and Pendlebury, held back. What was your approach to it?
Yeah, we're probably a little bit the same. I think there's two schools of thought. There was sides that went with an additional runner / midfielder, like the Pies did with Pendlebury, or sides that went with two rucks. And sides are trying to figure out which way or which dynamic suits their side with regard to talent and how that works. So we went with an impact player in we had a couple of things. Obviously, Zeke Uland, a first-year player, we wanted to manage his game time, but also Al Davies, who has an incredible impact in a short amount of time. So we held him back a little bit also. So I think clubs will find out what works for them and their style of play, but more importantly, the personnel that they've got available to them.
Have you got a plan? Do you know how that's going to look for you on Friday night?
Yeah, we've got a plan. We're not sure it's the right one. I think it'll evolve. I mean, right at the moment, one of our best big men in Nick Bryan's injured, so it might be a different look for us in 6 weeks' time. But yeah, watch with interest in terms of how other clubs did it.
The Pendlebury one last night had the biggest and most profound impact because of what he did immediately.
Yeah, I think Papley was pretty impactful too. So I think Pendlebury's that type of player who can just come on, he can assess the game, bring great composure. So I think it's really what you've got and using the weapons that you think are going to suit the team the best. But I really like it. I mean, the reality is before you choose a sub, if you choose to inject him into the game, you've got to take someone else out. So, the fact now we've got flexibility, I think, is good for coaches.
Is the game length the concern, that it continues to get longer?
Yeah, when we were trying to make it shorter. So that is a concern that, I know you're big on it, Gary, and I am too. I think, we just add games. We've added gather round, we've now added a wild card round, and the game gets longer. So, we manage the players better than we ever have, and that's evidenced by players like Scott Pendlebury at 39 still playing great footy. But I think the season length, the game length, will become a problem over time if we don't address it.
Are you in that camp, Dimmer?
Gerard, I'm living in Queensland. I needed a nap at half time on Friday night. I'm exhausted. That's way too long. Way too long.
Damien Hardwick and Brad Scott, our coaches this Monday night. We'll delve into the Essendon side of things. The off-season, which brings us to Friday night, and the expectation of 90,000 plus for a storied rivalry in the game that gets a fresh little twist. The Bombers and the Hawks. We'll see it all on Fox Footy on Friday night. We'll talk to Brad about it next. Are you aware of that conversation?
Yeah, I don't live under a rock.
Our club's position is that we will not be trading him under any circumstances.
My job is pretty clear. Make Hawthorn win.
Wouldn't be very good at hide and seek, Mitch, I reckon. Marco Polo. Marco.
I'm not a body language expert, but it's fair to say I don't think this deal is getting done by the looks of Tom Petracca there.
When you promise a club captain to put himself through this, to this point, to this extreme, you've got to come up with a way to get the deal done.
The reality is now that the gloves are off, ball's fair and love and war.
Get your tickets to round one. Essendon and Hawthorn will be spicy.
What you're referring to at the end of last year, does it add spice? Probably.
It seems as though 90,000 plus are going to break the all-time record between Essendon and Hawthorn in a home and away game on Friday night, with that as the backdrop. So, Brad, you sat here with us in September and told us precisely how this would unfold, and you were true to your word. Was there a bit of marriage counselling between you and Zack in the aftermath?
No, there wasn't any required. I mean, it was obviously a difficult period for everyone, but people don't believe you. But I mean, it's the narrative, there must have been some sort of breakdown between the player and coach. That never happened. So, he and I have always had a good relationship. And I've talked about, Zack has in a lot of ways carried our club through a really difficult period. And I always understood the burden that leadership carries, particularly when your club's struggling. And What I probably missed last year is because he is so good at compartmentalising and focusing on what he needs to, that it was probably weighing on him more than I realised. So, no, everything has unfolded the way that we fully expected it to. He's come in and been our best trainer in the pre-season, which is no surprise, and he thrives on these moments and these big games. So, we probably should give him a percentage of the gate receipts.
The build-up, that's not the first time you're going to see that or hear that, and that's just the theatre of footy. But what was real was a couple of his teammates were, vocal in just stating that they were disappointed, paraphrasing. So that's a relationship that has to be healed and mended. And I've seen that happen, so I don't suggest it doesn't, but how significant was it? And is it, and I know exactly what you're going to say, and everyone comes back under the one roof and you get on with it. Are we, as a footy-loving public, just got to get our head around the fact that this will happen more and more, and if it doesn't go the way of the player, they have to get reintegrated, and that's just life.
Yeah, I think it'll fluctuate. I mean, you see, for a while there, it was if a player declared they wanted to go to a club, they almost always got to that club. We take contracting very seriously, and when we contract players, we have the full intention of seeing that contract through. So, maybe things have shifted a little bit. One player manager said to me that we used to hold the power and now you guys hold the power. So it's completely shifted. So, the footy clubs are amazing places, and it's become public that one of our funnier players presented Zack with a Hawthorn jumper in the off season, and it's just that talks to how quickly we moved on and how quickly it became a joke. I mean that was at the end of last year. So I get that there's theatre around this game, but we moved on really quickly, and footy clubs have a great way of levelling everyone out, and when things like that happen, we get back to business pretty quickly.
The hatred of Hawthorn's not theatre though, is it? From a club point of view?
No, as a 8-year-old, the hatred was real. I mean, when I was 8 years old, those games shaped my football childhood. They were massive games. Everyone lived for them. The rivalry is real, and it's been real for 40 or 50 years. This is just the next instalment of it. So we're privileged to play in these games. I think it's unbelievable that we get to run out round one in a game like this. It's fantastic for our players, and it prepares them well, hopefully, for the things that are to come. They've targeted your captain and best player and made life uncomfortable for you guys for a period of time. You sat here and said the gloves are off. There was an offer made to Josh Weddle subsequently from your footy club. Yep. So it is real. This is, give and take, and expect to wear one back. Well, that's the way things work. I mean, if you throw a punch, expect one to come back your way pretty quickly, especially at our club.
For all that you've said about Zack, he couldn't be captain. Was that agreed upon quickly? Really quickly. I mean, wasn't even a discussion, because he came straight in and said, this is what's best for me and it's what's best for the club. And as I touched on, I probably misread the burden that he was carrying for the 3 years as captain. And we're going to see a Zack Merritt this year that has had that burden released, and the shackles are off for him. So, I've said, mate, unashamedly, you need to focus on yourself, and you just focus on being the best player you can be. And we've got a lot of developing leaders that are coming through, and it gives us an opportunity now for Andy McGrath to flourish, for our young leaders to step into the void, and we still have Zack there as our on-field cultural general, and we've got the opportunity to develop other players off-field. So for both of you, there's multiple captains these days. You've had that demo, you've gone to one who I think is an outstanding young leader. Is it harder than ever before to captain a footy club? Yeah, we have one too. I mean, Andy McGrath's our standalone captain, and the rest of our leadership group, we don't have a standalone vice captain, because it does take a lot of different personalities to lead, and it's unrealistic to expect one person to be all things to all people. So the way that we do it, we delegate responsibilities to our leaders based on their individual strengths, and we think that the group approach is the right one with a standalone captain. Dimmer?
Yeah, very similar, as Brad said. And it is a challenging role these days with the amount of commitments you have, but then also to perform at the highest level. So the more you can spread the load, I think can only be beneficial, not only for your captain, but also for the emergence of your other leaders as well to grow into that space also. So, we're very similar with regard to delegation of roles and understanding of roles within that leadership group. And, I think most leadership groups do a terrific job of relieving the burden on a sole captain at stages also.
One more. So Greg Swan said that he'd written to clubs to ask for feedback on Origin and what the right format going forward would be. Damien, have you made your thoughts known here?
Oh, we did at our coaches' conference. I love State of Origin. I just didn't love the timing. It just didn't suit our build-up for our team. We really want our players to play, but probably at the right time. It's really challenging when we're preparing for round 0 to have our players 3 to 4 weeks out playing the fastest game that's probably ever been recorded on GPS. They just weren't ready for it, and we probably saw the outcome of that. With some players that weren't quite ready for AFL come round 0. We can't compromise our season for a game that, although important, is not ready to be played at that time.
Brad?
Yeah, look, I thought in the lead-up that we'd stumbled on the perfect time for it. In the middle, a lot of people have talked about the middle of the year. I think if you're a top 4 side in the middle of the year and you get an injury in Origin, that would be an issue. I think it's always going to be a debate. Where does it fit? I'd love it to fit somewhere. And so I think engaging the coaches, the high-performance managers, how can we prepare our players to be ready wherever it fits? I think we've got to keep thinking about these things because we found a way to get gather round in, to get a wildcard round in. We've got to find a way to get State of Origin in.
We'll see you Friday night. Thanks for being here, Brad.
Forward to it.
Dimo, good on you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Kingers, it's your pick in the NFL Fantasy League. Get it done.
Damien Hardwick, extracurricular activities going on while we're on air, and Brad Scott with us on Coaches Night. The players going to lead right into Essendon and Hawthorn tomorrow night. Zack Merritt resumes his place at the desk, been with us for a few years now, and Will Day, who just can't take a trick, his second year as part of the 360 family. AFL's 360 is the OG. There's been Summer 360 and Cricket 360 and NRL 360 goes from strength to strength. Well, now on Wednesday nights, Motor Racing 360 premieres with Jess Webster, Mark Scaife and Paul Murray. And don't they have some material out of that weekend at Albert Park? All the incidents and accidents of the Australian Grand Prix. Wednesday, 7:30pm, Fox Sports and
Started something, Gerard.
Our players.
Our boys.
Nick Dacos sort of belongs.
Just played all right.
Josh Dunkley got
good on the weekend.
Jordan Dawson's biding his time. Will Day's here tomorrow night. Harry Sheasel, Harry Mackay, Errol Goulden straight into the votes.
Beautiful.
Took Miller, Andy Brayshaw, Patrick Dangerfield, Toby Green, Zack Merritt, and Ed Richards. Your timing here with Ed.
Ed Richards.
Spot on.
Man, they're in good form. And the man who's joining us tomorrow, Players Night with Will Day. It'd be great to talk to him. He's a considered thinker about footy. But if you don't know Zack Merritt and you're not in at the coalface, I don't think you understand exactly what he's about. He'll be outstanding he'll have an outstanding year, Zack Merritt, for the Essendon Footy Club. And there's a chance for them. The Hawks will be sitting back. They've taken one. They'll want to bounce back. And now the Bombers get a chance to land one on their nose. As Brad said, you give one, you're going to cop one back from our club.
Them's are fighting words. See you tomorrow night. Let's head to Jack Revolt on the couch.